Hello everyone. So welcome to a long overdue, I suppose, Connect the Decks episode. It's been a while since I've done one. And today I felt like talking about the kind of serendipitous nature in which we work with decks and interact with decks, and how that ends up, even sometimes accidentally, showing us things about ourselves. So in this case, I want to talk about the Dreams of Pantagruel Oracle, which is the Oracle deck that I have created, and Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends. Story time, I suppose. I was recently spending the evening with my partner. One of the things we often choose to do in the evening is read things out loud to each other. A Christmas or so ago, it was Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We recently finished the entirety of Lord of the Rings, which was actually years in the making because we kept getting distracted and doing other things and then like picking up months later, and that's a lot of material to work through. But we also do things like poetry. We've done Journey to the West, or rather, is it Story of the Stone? I can never remember. Don't tell my partner. I never remember titles for things particularly well. But anyway, recently we were reading through some poetry by Seamus Heaney and John Clare, and I picked up, for the first time in a long time, I picked up my copy of Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends, and then also everything on it. So this is like a double edition that was given to me years ago. And as I was reading through, first of all, due to the unexpected levels of nostalgia, I could hear like the voices of the people who used to read these to me when I was a kid, because it had been a while since I had picked it up. I ended up bursting into tears first, which is not uncommon for me, especially when it comes to things like poetry that's like all mood and impression. The tears, they floweth with me all the time. But aside from that initial stage, which my partner's quite accustomed to, I started to like really pick up on some of the ways in which I hadn't totally clocked some of the influences that go into my personal tastes in terms of deck collecting or art creation and collecting, or even just appreciation. So for example, as I have indicated on the channel, I have made an Oracle deck on makeplayingcards.com, link in the description, of 120 cards using the imagery from what is it, Breton? Is that how you say it in French? Using the imagery from the drolletic Dreams of Pantagruel. Again, there's all sorts of information about that and what went into the making of the deck in a video linked somewhere in the cards, but also in the description. So point being, I had made this recently, and I knew that my own tastes tend to revolve around historical artwork, a lot of Hieronymus Bosch, a lot of late medieval stuff, as anyone who follows me on this channel will know, a lot of Renaissance trope symbolism, image composition, particularly the Northern Renaissance. Like, the whole historical aesthetic is my thing. But on top of that, as I've often discussed, I like a real sense of what other people call creepy art. Really, really strange creatures, very, very sort of topsy-turvy worlds. I do regret a little bit overusing the word marginalia with regard to this deck, simply because I'm not really certain marginalia is quite the right descriptor. Again, drollery, as I indicate in the video about this deck, is much more appropriate, but I'm also very interested in marginalia and the ways in which it sort of has a serendipitous or accidental interaction with a pre-existing text and things like that. So the thing that I was, really aware of is that, yes, I really like certain types of historical things. I really enjoy when art verges on the realm of creepy or strange or odd, melancholic, where you kind of go like, oh, where am I? I'm off the map, And I knew that that was my jam, obviously. And I was thinking that, okay, I had certain storybooks when I was a kid that absolutely talked about Hieronymus Bosch and so on. So that's where that came from. Until I picked up recently, for the first time in a while, Shel Silverstein's work, and suddenly more things clicked. So I don't think it'll be any particular surprise if you think about a lot of the authors that at least people of my generation would have been exposed to. Maury Sendak, Where the Wild Things Are, In the Night Kitchen, or, you know, Quentin Blake, and so on. Like some of the, who else? I suppose Eric Carle to a degree. But a lot of the children's writers and illustrators that I would have been exposed to growing up have a little bit of this notion of slightly strange or creepy art insofar as it works a little bit with how to scare you. Like the jokes it makes about the topsy-turvy nature, say, of society, something we often see in Quentin Blake's representations of Roald Dahl's artwork, for example. But one thing that I realized is that I always see these kinds of images as implied by the term drolatic as funny. They're humorous. The numbers of times that I've done readings with my own tech where I've burst out laughing because it's like a very serious reading and I'm really trying to work through something where I have a very important question to ask, and all of a sudden I like pull an oracle card and it like makes me crack up at myself, is something that really helps me process information. And I've always thought that a lot of the creepy things that you see in Hieronymus Bosch's work, or even, for example, the characters in the various iterations of the Trionfi della Luna, Marseille, or even, I suppose, the Paradoxical Illustrated Pips, or whatever it's called. The Trionfi della Luna art, for example, yes, is weird and strange, but makes me laugh. Just does. Or I have here a deck I want to do a video about soon, the Tarot Lendoir. And the faces on like all the creatures in this deck also are really strange and scary at times, but also just make me laugh. Like there's just a real sort of quizzical, if I were to make another pop culture reference, it might be a very sort of Tim Burton vibe, although Tim Burton at times is not exactly my favorite. But the point is that I see something very humorous in this, and I was thinking like how interesting that that's really, really worked into my understanding of all these things. And I think Shel Silverstein is an excellent example. So what I'm going to do, I'm hoping to keep this video comparatively short and sweet today. What I'm going to do is read just a couple examples of Shel Silverstein's work. I will show some cards with them, and then I will also show, and this is the point here, I suppose, I will also show Shel Silverstein's accompanying illustrations for those poems. Side note, my partner was totally unfamiliar with Shel Silverstein, so I get the impression that maybe the intense familiarity with his work might be an American phenomenon, which kind of like freaks me out. I'm kind of like, no, you're supposed to understand like everything about me, partner. And I'm like, how have I not mentioned like the giving tree to you? I'm gonna cry again. But anyway, okay, I better thinking about it. I'm gonna get too like nostalgic or whatever. But anyway, so I wanted to read some of these poems. I'll read just a couple, and then what I might do is shuffle the deck and play around with maybe even a continuation, as it were, of the video I made, again, linked somewhere, on using tarot decks for bibliomancy, but in this case, I guess, using an oracle deck for bibliomancy with a given book. Okay, so firstly, I have here, and I'll show you the pages in a minute, the poem, which was one of my favorites growing up, called Ickle Me, Pickle Me, Tickle Me Too. And I'll endeavor to show images as I read it. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Went for a ride in a flying shoe. Hooray, what fun! It's time we flew, said Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle was captain, Pickle was crew. And Tickle served coffee and mulligan stew as higher and higher and higher they flew. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too, over the sun and beyond the blue. Hold on, stay in, I hope we do, cried Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too, never returned to the world they knew, and nobody knows what's happened to dear Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. And then you have, ooh, goodness, dropping things, the illustrations that go with it. I cannot see what I'm showing you, but anyway. is nonsensical. Look at his face. My sisters and I used to, like, when we were really little, look at the poem and, like, make sure we knew which one was ickle and pickle and tickle. Because, you know, that's what you gotta do. Another example, let's see. Ah, yes. Just gonna make sure that I don't drop more things here. So this one is called Orchestra. Orchestra. So you haven't got a drum, just beat your belly. So I haven't got a horn, I'll play my nose. So we haven't any cymbals, we'll just slap our hands together. And though there may be orchestras that sound a little better with their fancy shiny instruments that cost an awful lot, hey, we're making music twice as good by playing what we've got. So again, I'm making a mess of everything, but you know, it's a thing, right? I'm not crazy here. I mean, I am crazy, but I'm not crazy. Forget I said that. Where am I dropping all these cards from? Oh yeah, whoops. The Googies are coming, the old people say, to buy little children and take them away. 50 cents for fat ones, 20 cents for lean ones, 15 cents for dirty ones, 30 cents for clean ones, a nickel each for mean ones. The Googies are coming, and maybe tonight. They buy little children and lock them up tight. 80 cents for husky ones, quarter for the weak ones, penny each for noisy ones, $1 for the meek ones. 40 cents for happy ones, 11 cents for sad ones, and kiddies when they come to buy, it won't do any good to cry. But just between yourself and I, they never buy the bad ones. And let's see, one more for the book that's in it, because these have all been from this volume within this book, or this book within this volume. Let's just make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah. There is a place where the sidewalk ends, and before the street begins, and there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright, and there the moonbird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children they mark and the children they know, the place where the sidewalk ends. Isn't that nice? I like that. But the point being, of course, that the images are on the strange side with Shel Silverstein. There's a lot of like kind of leery, scary characters, but there's also humor in every single scary moment. There are certain poems of his that would have been read to me when I was little that I was definitely terrified of, but I'd be like, read again. And it's interesting too, because I wasn't, and still am not, the kind of person that loves being like jump scared or loves horror films for the sake of feeling scared. It's not exactly a feeling I tend to wish to cultivate, but there's definitely a, what kind of, that's unanswered, that's creepy. Like the one where the guy like loses his head because it's not screwed on right and then doesn't know that he's sitting on it used to scare me, because I was always told like, you'd lose your head if it wasn't screwed on right. And I'd be like, ah, you know, so there's just a really fun component to that, I think. And I think that Shel Silverstein is a really good modern example of kind of like what I mean when I say that I don't really understand what people mean by like creepy in an exclusively negative way. Okay, so now I'm shuffling the deck and I'm just gonna draw a card, and since there are 2 books within this volume, I'll just kind of see how this ends up working out. The number of pages in this volume are not the same as the number of cards I have in front of me. So I'll just sort of take the number and see if there's a poem on said page. I happen to know that the 2 books in this volume also like restart the page numbering. So again, there's all sorts of ways that a person can combine any given deck with any given book. All right, let's see. Riffle and Bridge, which is difficult to do always on camera. That didn't really work. Anyway. Cut the deck. And we have, okay, card number 102. It's like a, I keep thinking of this guy as a fish, but he's not. He's kind of a pothead. Or, you know, a leaky vase. The sort of a vase, almost as like a flag standard or something, except that it's just a vase on a stick. And the classic spiky shoes. I think he's literally wetting his toe while dancing about and capering. So anyway, 102. Let's see what we're likely to come across. There is no poem on the first page, 102. Okay. Oh, all right. So this is the page, this is the illustration across from 102. This is 103. And the poem is called Investigating. Professor Shore from Memphis State decided to investigate just how the elephant's tail was tied onto the elephant's leathery hide. Well, while he was investigating, something happened so nauseating and so disgusting that I fear it just might make you sick to hear it. So let's just say Professor Shore doesn't investigate tails no more. You'll find surprises happen mostly when we investigate too closely. Okay, I'm perfectly happy if it's literally just me that finds this kind of combination of things fascinating. That is, after all, why I made the deck. But once again, if anyone's interested in this, it's available on makeplaincards.com. There is a link in the description. Yeah, all the details are there. And do remember that on my blog, I also have the kind of mini little companion introduction booklet that goes with this. It's 8 pages long. That kind of explains the background information on the deck and also includes citations for anything stated that is related to historical research and so on. So yeah, all relevant links in the description. I hope everyone is doing well, taking care of themselves to the best of their ability, having a good chuckle at the weirdness of life. And I'll see you next time. Bye.